Welcome back to the Shuffle Squad. Zach Lesage here. We're all back from NAIC, or at least I hope most of us are back. A lot of weather issues were preventing some players from getting back from the tournament, but we have the results here from NAIC. So I figured, why not go over all the results from NAIC? We're not going to get all the way down to the bottom of the depths of the top 512 because there was 390 players in day 2, but we will go over some of the main archetypes, go over some of the different decks that were there, and really just kind of update everyone on where our first major Destined Rivals tournament was in the West. As for me, my wife had a bit of a medical emergency while we were in New Orleans, so I dropped from the tournament to take care of that. So my Joltik box hopes and dreams not there on this list. So if anyone's wondering, hey Zach, how'd you do? I went 1-0 drop. I'll take the undefeated status. Everything else is all right at home. If you haven't already, give this video a like, share, and subscribe. And of course, check out our sponsors in the description. I'm going to turn off my camera here while we kind of look over things. And let's start off by looking at Isaiah Bradner, one of the most well-known names in Pokemon. Multiple top cuts, multiple this, and now an international champion in Masters. So we're looking at a typical Gardevoir list, except there's no Drifloon, and he's since replaced it with Monkey Dory. So going more Monkey Dories in a field of Grimmsnarl and other decks that play Monkey Dory and Dragapult sounds pretty good. This is probably going to be the new standard. The other interesting cards in this deck are going to be Energy Switch. So you can move a basic energy from one of your Pokemon to another one of your Pokemon, giving us opportunities to Adrenabrain, move it to another Pokemon, Adrenabrain, allowing us to artificially increase the amount of Adrenabrains per turn. And there's also a Turbo Energize, allowing us to accelerate energies. So if in a matchup that you need to go Monkey Dory right away, you could go Turbo Energize to Monkey Dory, or if you can't necessarily find out your energies, you could Turbo Energize and have Gardevoir just being an attacker. With Gardevoir being a main attacker and Monkey Dory moving a bunch of damage around, we have more opportunities now than ever. Considering we do double damage against Dragapult and we have single prize cards against Pokemon like Raging Bolt, this seems like an incredible build of the deck and a well done job. I know that Henry Chow played this list. There's a handful of others. You could see Isaiah, Rahul, Henry, Lucas, Michael Davidson, some very strong group of players there that all test together and kind of work things out. So I think that's going to be a pretty typical Gardevoir build as we look through it. We see that there's some other players that play Gardevoir, Riley McKay, not nearly the same, just going with Turbo Evolution, Evolving, Shaman, pretty standard list, updated with Shaman. Looking at Henry Chow's Rabska build from previous tournaments and just kind of going with it. So I think this is where most, I don't want to say average because Riley came second and played amazing, but this is where most lists were at NAIC, and Isaiah's list was just a little next level. And I think like we often wonder why some of these players keep on making top cut. They are innovating and really bringing some cards like I never thought of playing Turbo Technical Machine Turbo Energize in Gardevoir. Now we have Tord Reklev here. Again, one of the most notable names in the game. Tord Reklev played straight Pults, just Dragapults, had a couple Monkey Dories, so upping the Monkey Dory from 1 count to 2 counts. And then otherwise playing a standard build, we see a lot of other decks going to, or a lot of Dragapult decks going to Neo Upper Energy now. Seems like it's just the better play. But otherwise, there's nothing here that's like incredibly special when it comes to the deck. We see an extra Monkey Dory, we see Neo Upper Energy, and most of this looks like the straight Pult list. There's no new cards added. Tord knows what he's doing and countered a lot of the Dragapult players that were playing Dragapult Dusknoir, which straight Pult typically does, but it does struggle a little bit more against Gardevoir than Dragapult Dusknoir would. We see Greg Minkley there, and when it comes down to the next archetype, after we've gone over it a couple times, I'm not trying to pass up on you, Greg, but Gardevoir is pretty decided. We do see Ray Chen. Ray Chen's had an amazing past couple tournaments with the Toedscruel. So not necessarily having the greatest run recently with this season, like Vancouver, first day 2 this season, then goes into that asymmetrical cut with the Toedscruel, then brings it to a top 8. So really showing Toedscruel's on top. Shout out Ray. You see that there's a few players that ended up playing this deck, and this is what we got. I'm not sure why we switched from 3-1, 3 this, whatever, but I think a lot of the list is just well defined. Ray keeps on doing well, so if you're not necessarily playing the deck the same way as Ray, like, sure, there's some inconsistencies when it comes to this deck, like any other deck in format, but I think that Toedscruel is kind of real. Like, no one's really playing it. If we run over to the statistics here, Toedscruel had 7 people playing it, and I think it's really one of those things where even if we look at just Sacramento, Portland, I think Toedscruel is probably a real deck when it comes down to it now. So give it a try. I think it's cool. But let's go back into some of these other decks. We see Piper. Piper, again, absolutely amazing player. Like, there's a lot of players here that we've seen a lot of success. And Piper playing Grimmsnarl. So Grimmsnarl being the new big bad deck, or should I say new big good deck, from this set, Destined Rivals. And we see a pretty consistent build with triple Monkey Dory, double Frostlass, and it's just building up damage on your Frostlass, your Grimmy, Monkey Dory, moving damage around, Badoo locking your opponent at the beginning of the game, or going for TM Evo. And we just want to really build up that board where we're able to go punk up, load up some energies, and then start making some decisions. It's relatively easy to get set up because we have the proprietary Spike Myth Stadium that only works for our Marnie's Pokemon. And I think this build looks great. So no bad deal at all here. I think this is where most Grimmsnarl lists are going to probably end up. And we see Cameron Shinoy playing En's Zoroark. Definitely a deck that I didn't expect to make top 8 at NAIC. I don't even know if I expected this deck to really make day 2. Maybe a few slipping in through the cracks. But having a good matchup against Gardevoir, because of En's Darmanitan and Monkey Dory and some other things, I think that this is an interesting build. And I think it's something that we should probably look into a little bit more. Maybe En's Zoroark is not dead. Probably worthwhile to see how this deck plays out. I think it might just be the start. I think they really wanted trade to be good, okay? Also, if anyone's looking for these lists, you could always check out these lists in the description. I'm not going to paste every individual list. I'm just going to put the link here, and then you can grab the list where it says list. We have Rosh, who played, from what I understand, is just straight pulled. It looks like Henry Brand's list previously. Except they've added in a Watchtower. So we're not really seeing too much. We see the Marnie's Grimmsnarl, we see the Watchtower. Nothing's really adjusting too much when it comes to these decks. We see Bodie Robinson, again, very well-known player, who played Dragapult Dusknoir. So again, I think we're going to see Dragapult Dusknoirs looking like this with the Neo Upper Energy. Nothing else new, no stadiums, no nothing, just big Dragapult, big Dusknoir, Neo Upper Energy. And yeah, so if you haven't already, pick up your Neo Upper Energies. I think they're probably going to be a little bit more valuable now, especially as we see players pulling them out. And as we saw with Secret Box spiked up to, like, I think it was a $15 card. I wouldn't be surprised if Neo Upper Energies are starting to disappear from leagues. People are not going to necessarily buy them, or people are going to buy them out at league. So at 278, you only need one, right? But I mean, we all have a handful of decks. So looking like a very cool deck there. We see Ryan Antonucci there. Ryan Antonucci playing this list that a lot of different players played. McConney, Arnie, Benjamin Clark, Jackson Ford, Rowan Stavenhout. This is the list. I don't think there's a better Dragapult Charizard list because A, this one did the absolute best. B, if you look at those players, there's some serious star power there, And I don't even think that we want to waste our time for a second look when it comes down to it. I think that this is just where it's at. So Dragapult Charizard really coming in clutch. So 3 different Dragapult variants in the top 16. And I don't know. I think that this one just looks fantastic. Not really much that I want to change. I don't have anything to comment on it other than we have a really serious, good group of players playing the deck. And this is what I love about NAIC is like we literally just have the definite list. Everyone wants that $25,000 prize, right? And I think that's where a lot of these things, like you could look down and be like, okay, this is a pro player that had a few rough games day 2. Maybe that's where it's at. But I think like a lot of these lists, like even if you look at Ginsburg here, Ginsburg's had one heck of a season, and we see them playing we see them playing Eevee Box. Now Eevee Box was another deck where it does well against Dragapult, does well against Grimmsnarl, struggles a little bit against Gardevoir. You see Cyrano seeing some uptick here. This is a card that I only own 2 copies of, y'all. I need to find some more Cyranos when it comes down to it. But I think that this list it has some cool stuff. Again, nothing new. The Leafeon's going to be new in the deck, adding it for the Verdant Storm and the Mossagate against the grass type weak Pokemon. We see Gravity Mountain here, so maybe that's going to be the advantage to be able to go Carnelian into a Gardevoir, giving yourself an OHKO opportunity instead of playing Umbreon. So we have some cool things across the board when it comes to playing this list. I like it. I mean, Eevee Box is one of my top considerations. It's looking like it's a pretty solid list here. No complaints. As we go down, we see Raging Bolt. And of course, we're going to see some strong players like Yurko Valencia. Now, Yurko's had a crazy successful past few seasons. And we see Raging Bolts doing Raging Bolt things. Nothing new here, nothing crazy, just Raging Bolts. And I think, like, again, we're going to see lists. It looks very similar to the lists that we're seeing success across the board. I think we're going to see the 2 Raging Bolt, 1 Baby Bolts. You could go with the 1 Hoot Hoot. I think you can go with the 3, but that's really going to be like the micro changes that you can make to the deck that fit in. Otherwise, I look at this and I'm like, oh, okay, everything else makes perfect sense to me. We are cutting the energy retrievals for Night Stretchers now, but these are all just like on trends of other things that we've seen. Now, as we scroll down a little bit, we see Dragapult Charizard, or sorry, Dragapult Zoroark. Of course, the one time I just butchered it, right? This is a deck that Henry Brand was supposed to play with Stefan Ivanov, and it's one of those things where Henry, I guess, didn't play any IC due to flight delays, or maybe that was a joke and just wasn't going in the first place. Presented this deck to Stefan, and now Stefan had a really good run, only a couple days practicing this deck before the tournament. Now, Stefan's the type of player that could do that, but if I look at it, this is a really unique build, and it might be something to look in a little bit more. Being able to use Zoroark as an additional way to draw through things, and then having the possibility to use Night Joker. Night Joker being strong against things like Gardevoir, so having option to tear down a Gardevoir can be absolutely fantastic, especially since you can go ends PP up with Arven and slap on a Dark or a Luminous Energy and call it a day. I think it's cool, but it's still Dragapult at the end of the day. So if you're sick of Dragapult, I'm sorry. There's a whole bunch of it. You can see Dragapult, Gardevoir, Raging Bolt, Marnie's Grimmsnarl, all of these decks really flooding the top things. We see Terra Box, or Ogre Pawn Box, however you want to call it. And this one's a little bit more of an interesting take. They play the Ogre's Mask in the deck. They play Legacy Energy. I think it's interesting. I've never really heard of Matthew Hubbard before. Where were we? We were right here. Matthew Hubbard, not really seeing too much before. So sometimes you have a deck that's interesting that can make it a little bit further. So it wouldn't be a traditional Terra Box deck, but it is cool that they were able to utilize the Ogre's Mask deck, and any Pokemon that has Ogre Pawn, attached cards, special conditions, turns in play, and any other effects remain on the new Pokemon. So that's kind of interesting as we look through that. And we see, like, there's just star power in here. We see Henry Chow down there. We see Consta Kalima. We see Cal Connor, Lucas Zing, Owen Cameraman, Gaiwin. Like, it goes down. We're going to go to our next big new deck, and that's going to be Grant Shen. And when I say new deck, it's not new at all. We've added in a Venture Bomb to the Gholdengo Dragapult, and I think that's a really cool way to use Monkey Dory. So you're either like getting the right coin flip, so flip a coin of heads, put 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. If tails, put 2 damage counters on your active Pokemon. So for Make It Rain, some Pokemon are just under that level. So think of a Pokemon that has 210 HP like Vezinipity. You have to discard 5 energies. So it's the same as having 250. But if you were able to Venture Bomb and go through something, then you automatically get the knockout, right? And if you get the tails, then you just move the Monkey Dory damage over. We've seen this with some Archaludon decks, and I think that's kind of interesting. Otherwise, we're just going to be using Make It Rain. This is probably the more successful way of using Dango. I'm still not sure how I feel about the Dragapult DX. I feel like people say they use Dragapult DX, and I like the option of using Dragapult DX and evolving into Dragapult DX, but I could see us cutting the Dragapult DX for like a picnic basket, and that could be interesting as well. I'm sure that Grant Shen's probably like, Zach, why would you ever cut Dragapult DX? Worst player ever. But it's one of those things where I do want to put that as an option. It's not always going to be attacking. Sometimes it's just Make It Rain. There are some decks that I would maybe want to use Phantom Dive against, and those would be decks that are primarily single prize card decks where I could set up for multiple knockouts without getting things, because otherwise Make It Rain into single prize card decks could be a little bit tough. Sure, there's probably some more specifics, but something to consider there. We continue to scroll down. We see another Zoroark deck with Marco Cifuentes. We see a Ho-Oh Armarouge deck. Now, this is a deck that I built a few, maybe a week or two before NAIC. And you can see they use Armarouge to move the fire energies that Ho-Oh lays in play. So Ho-Oh can just accelerate energies in play, move them around with Armarouge. That's kind of cool. And then you have all these different attackers. You can move the luminous energies, and then you can attack with various Pokemon. I think it's a cool take on the deck, and it's something that we might see. I know that people have said that it feels like a colorless Lugia in a way. So if you've ever played that, it's a little bit inconsistent from time to time, but it can do pretty well. So that was awesome to see in the top 64. See some other players like Jack Morris, very strong players. BTC Fabian Pujol, that's playing Garchomp. Now, this is the only other really true to new deck outside of maybe the Armarouge deck, or Armarouge Ho-Oh deck is pretty new. I'd say that that's fair. We have the Cynthia's Garchomp. So Cynthia's Garchomp using Corkscrew Drive or Draconic Buster, being able to increase your damage with the Cynthia's Roserade. We have some Monkey Dory action. So we take some damage, and then we can attack with Spiritomb. We also have big Cynthia's Power Weights giving us more HP. And I think that it's really going to be one of those decks where it's strong. I think it's something that people haven't played against. I think it's really interesting. Not really too much. I think it's pretty basic, but maybe it's less basic than I think it is. So if we look over there, that's what brings us over through the whole top 64. And if we look at the statistics here, and these are just the decks that made day 2, so the top 390 players. When I say top 390, there's almost 4,000 players in the tournament, so only 10% of players made it. We have Dragapult's Raging Bolt, Gardevoir, Marnie's Grimmsnarl. I think these decks are definitively the top 4 decks. Now, it's not going to split between Dragapult Charizard, Dragapult Dusknoir, and whatever. So Dragapult is probably not as popular. Like as singularity, it's probably more in the range of all the Dragapults are popular, not nearly as popular as Raging Bolt and Gardevoir or Marnie's Grimmsnarl for even, because that's like 4 Dragapult archetypes. So even if we split it even 3, it's like 30s, which would put it at within the top range. But I think like Raging Bolt, Gardevoir, Marnie's Grimmsnarl, a little bit more popular. Dragapult might shoot up to be a little bit more popular overall. We see the Eevee Box decks seeing success. Dango is also put together in the same category, where we see all these Dangos and Dragapult Dango. Joltik Box The deck that I played ended up doing all right, not really the strongest deck when it comes down to it. Like, I'm looking at it, I don't necessarily recognize too many names here. But I think it's quite effective in the format, having options against Dragapult and Grimmsnarl, although it does struggle against Raging Bolt and a little bit less against Gardevoir, but still struggles against it. Toedscruel looks like it's going to be taking the new spot of one of the top decks in the top 10. Then we have Cynthia's Garchomp, and I think these are the decks where, like, this Toedscruel to Cynthia's Garchomp's probably where we're going to see the decks falling out of the top 10. We see Zoroark. That could be okay. Saraledge. There was a few Archaladons that did all right, but I don't think any of these decks truly spiked. Some Ho-Oh, Armarouge, Milotic, Terra Box, and I think the Terra Box, one of them, okay, it's a little bit, one's Terra Box and one's Ogre Pawn Box, so interesting to consider there. Rocket's Mewtwo had a couple placements. Charizard had a placement, which is kind of interesting because Charizard won NAIC and Seniors, had one day 2. So something to consider for Charizard. Probably had Gabriel Fernandez list. We had Future Box, Roaring Moon, Blissey, Blaziken, Festival Lead, and Rocket Spidops. So some interesting decks where we had 19 decks, or they're all tied for 19, or however it works. 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. So there's a handful of different decks that exist in this world, and I think we're going to see the format more or less kind of be the same as we look forward to it. So I'd say it's worthwhile to look at these results. We have League Cups, League Challenges coming out kind of like in 10 days. So for me, as I look towards it, I just think that it's worthwhile to kind of study this metagame, because I don't necessarily think our Black Bolt and White Flare set's going to change things too much as we approach Worlds. Sure, there's Electric and there's some Pokemon tools and stuff. There's a handful of things that might be okay, but I think overall we're probably just going to see the metagame be this top thing. There's not a deck that I think really like kind of fell out. If anything, we added a few decks from Destined Rivals, and the rest of the metagame kind of shook up a little bit from there. So I know this is our Friday video. Typically I do our top 10 best decks. When it comes down to it, I hope that everyone liked this video to update everyone. I know I got back from NAIC kind of earlier this week. I've been using this week to kind of mentally reset. Dropping from the tournament wasn't anything that I wanted, so I just think I'm just kind of taking it a little bit easier this week. I mean, I got a Nintendo Switch 2 and I'm playing replaying through Breath of the Wild, so I feel like I'm kind of normal in some capacities. I just don't play Pokemon, y'all. I binge Zelda, Saving Hyrule. But we're gonna be back on a normal content schedule next week, so expect Monday through Friday videos. And we have a few great things coming up, so if you've been following the Shuffle Squad, I hope that you continue to follow us. We've had amazing season. Most of our players made it to the World Championships, so we're going to be covering some more great content. Going to start covering over some Black Bolt and White Flare content on the channel, and really just kind of gearing up as we prepare for next season. So whether or not you're kind of playing in these major events, or if you're just wondering where our content's heading, or you're preparing for something, we have a lot of cool stuff on the way. So I appreciate all y'all for tuning in. If you're trying to improve your game over the summer and be one of the players on these lists, I've coached many players previously. So Piper, Lapine, Bodie Robinson, Michael Davidson briefly. There's a handful of players here. So I'd love to be part of your journey, your success, and show you a thing or two. I think as much as I wasn't here, again, I did drop from the tournament. It is one of those things where I could definitely help you improve your gameplay, whether it's through sequencing, some of the things that you might have missed. So hit me up for some coaching on metafy.gg. Other than that, I'll catch you with all y'all later. Much love, peace out, and have a great one. to support the Shuffle Squad, be sure to check out all of our sponsors in the description to pick up Pokemon TCG singles, sealed, and PTCG live codes.
Tabi no hajimari wa tsune ni michi e no ippo de aru. Sore wa yami e to tsuzuku. Hajime no ippo o fumidasu ni wa yuuki ga iru. Soshite tabi no owari ni wa tabi o hajimeta toki no jibun to wa betsujin ni natte iru kamoshirennai. Tabi ni deyo. Monogatari no tsugi no shou ga onushi o motte iru. 将軍の道を歩め、侍の箱とともに、アルティメットガードが送る冒険の第一章。刀、将軍の道、近日発売。
Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed the content that we have today. And maybe you'll click on one of these other videos, enjoy those videos too. If you haven't already, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and let us know in the comments what video you want to watch next. Until next time, we'll catch up with all y'all later. Have yourself a great day.